Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Hi guys, welcome back to the College Cinephile. I'm your host Raven, and with me today is a very special guest, storyboard artist Tony Liberatore. Tony has worked on several great works, including the Captain America films, Kong Skull Island, multiple Fast and Furious movies, and most recently, The Dark Tower. And Tony today will be joining us on Skype, so thank you for joining us.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right. So can you tell us what piqued your interest in storyboarding?
Well, I've always been fascinated with sequential art, I guess, from when I was a little kid. I was into comic books, a lot of anime type of stuff. I kind of grew up on that. So it kind of led me down that road where I wanted to do something in either the comic book industry or the animation industry. So yeah, I knew that pretty early on and kind of kept going down that road to see how far I could get.
Okay, what types of comics and anime and whatnot were you into?
Well, as far as the anime goes, I mean, the earliest stuff I started watching was like Tranzor Z or Speed Racer, but you know, like a lot of the early '80s stuff, like that Thundercats stuff, Silverhawks. I was always blown away by the amazing intros that they would put on those shows because they were so slick and they looked so good, and the way they were animated was just so amazing. It was like nothing you'd ever seen before. You know, it was like nothing coming from Hanna-Barbera, or not saying that, you know, any of that animation was any less superior, but it just didn't have that kind of like slick action dynamic feel. It was really cinematic type stuff, and it really spoke to me. You know, I like that in the Robotech stuff, Star Blazers, Battle of the Planets, that type of stuff.
Okay. So
comics not so. I mean, I like the Spider-Man stuff, most of the Marvel stuff, and I'm not just saying that just because I work for Marvel, but I was really into a lot of the you know, the classic type Spider-Man stuff, some of the Venom stuff when it came out, a lot of Transformers and things like that.
did you model your early art off of that kind of stuff, or what was your early art?
I'm still doing it. I'm doing it as we speak. I'm always like looking to rip stuff like that off and throw it into a sequence if I can, because the stuff that we do nowadays is a little more on the animated side than just a traditional storyboard side, but I'm sure we can get into that later. But yeah, I incorporate that stuff all the time.
So can you take us what a typical day as a storyboard artist is like?
Well, it depends. I guess on a day where I would go in to meet with a director, would probably kind of run like, I would go in, we would sit down, either there would be a script or there wouldn't be, and we would just start going through the broad strokes of a particular scene. It seems like more and more these days there's no script, really. They'll just have us start working on a sequence and start to kind of lay out broad stroke story beats in the storyboard form, and then, you know, I would come back and then the director will look that stuff over and give me notes, and you know, we would go from there. So a day with meeting director might include maybe an hour or two meeting, going over basic beats and things like that, telling us shots that they are expecting to see in the sequence, or a vibe they want to get across in the sequence. It's not so much they sit down and lay out all the shots for you and tell you exactly what they want to say. They'll call out particular things that they want to see in there, and it's pretty much up to you to fill in the rest. So yeah, a couple hour meeting with the director, and then I'll go back and start working, and then I may not meet with the director again for another week, another 2 weeks, another 3 weeks, depending on what the situation is with the production. But outside of that, a regular typical drawing day, I mean, I'll just be drawing for about 10 to 12 hours during the day and just cranking out as many frames as I can.
Okay. What are your favorite scenes to draw?
I don't know. People tell me that I do action scenes pretty well, so I guess that's kind of in my head. You know, how to stage things in a more action type setting versus a, you know, like a more dramatic type of setting with like blocking actors moving through a scene. It's not my specialty, that type of stuff. I think the car chases, the big budget action sequences are a little more in my wheelhouse, I think. So I gravitate towards that stuff, and I think I get hired to come on projects to kind of flesh out that type of narrative, if you will, in the story. But other board artists might go more towards like a drama type of feel or horror or something like that, and they're really good at communicating the staging and the blocking and the narrative through their boards and that. But I think I'm geared more toward like the action side of things.
What's your favorite scene that you've drawn so far? Like which one were you most satisfied with from storyboard to screen?
I guess I'd have to say maybe Lagos and probably Fast 5. I think it was the first Fast and Furious movie I went on. It was fun to do that because everything was shot practically. So they really went off, they were really heavily relying on the boards. So much so that we rented out like a soccer stadium down in Puerto Rico when we were filming this, and we would try and replicate the gags in the storyboards with the real cars and the stunt people there. So that was, to see all that come to life from the storyboards is probably one of the most rewarding, sequences that I've worked on.
Okay, so you get to go on set as they're filming this as well?
Sometimes it depends. It's, the job is so weird. Sometimes I never meet anybody. Like I might meet the director a couple times. We might work over Skype, and that'll be the end of it, really. And then sometimes I have to fly out to the location and be down there on set just in case like an idea changes, or if something unforeseen happens with the location or the weather. They need to switch gears on the fly, then I would come in, go down on set, get into meet with the director, get into a trailer somewhere and start cranking out the revised scene so they can, make these changes on the fly. Because time is money.
Right. So what are some misconceptions about being a storyboard artist?
I guess, well, there are a couple things. I don't think a lot of people know what the job is, and when you explain to them what the job is, they had no idea that storyboards were used for so many different things, not just films, but commercials, video games, advertising stuff, billboards, print ad work. So storyboards cross this broad range of areas, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of. And then also the fact that when you go into a job, like I was saying earlier, there's not always really, I haven't seen a script in about 10 years, I don't think, like a fully fleshed out script that I work from. So I don't think a lot of people know that the storyboard artist is really, is making these, creative decisions at the beginning of the show to kind of start to, steer things in a certain direction that the director wants. But it's not like they're dictating exactly what they want to see to you. It's, you have to come up with a lot of this narrative and fill it in, and it has to make sense visually. It has to cut together. So a storyboard artist has to be a bit of an editor, a cinematographer, an actor, a director, and then be able to draw on top of it. So I don't think a lot of people know that, storyboard artists wear all these different hats, and it's a lot to try and organize and control throughout the whole process, because you have to be mindful of all these different things. Because if what you're pitching to the director and the producers and ultimately the studio, if it's not coming across or it doesn't make sense, they really can't visualize a final product out of what you're doing. There's a lot of responsibility on a storyboard artist's shoulders in the beginning of the production that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of.
That's new information. So what are some things that you wish just the general viewer would know about storyboarding?
What do I wish?
Like the general uninformed audience, what are some things that you think would either be interesting for them to know or useful for them to know about storyboarding?
Well, the interesting part, I think, is like I was saying earlier, all these different kind of hats you have to put on in order to make the sequence work, because you're really the first iteration of the script, visual iteration of the script. So it has to play out like a movie. It has to have that feeling when you're watching it. And in order to put all that together, you really have to know or have a basic understanding of all these different positions. Like I was saying, you have to know how to edit the sequence together, because if you're doing animatics, those have to edit. The cinematography and the composition and things like that, understanding basic lenses. It's, if I were trying to explain it to somebody, I would tell them that, it's not just this one thing. It's like a culmination of all these different jobs that you have to sort of, master each one in a sense in order to sell the sequence. Because you're not just giving something to the director and the producers to sell to the studio. You're pitching this sequence to them also. So you're up there doing a whole song and dance through this thing, and these are your ideas a lot of the times. And, things are, they're personal, and you really want to sell those ideas to people. So when you get up there, you're trying to really make sure that the sequence really reads, it really makes sense, it's what they want, and that you're getting the point across to them so they can in turn sell that back to the studio. So, yeah, I guess that's something important people should know.
Okay, and one last question. Do you have any advice for any students who would be looking to get into storyboarding, or anybody in general, not just students, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, it's... I get asked this question all the time. If you want to actually draw for a living, like I was saying before, storyboards cover so many different areas. You can get into the video game side of it, because all those scenes and all those video games now that have all the narrative in them, all that stuff has to be storyboarded out. If you want to do print ad stuff or billboard type work, all that stuff has to be drawn out. Poster comp work for movies, all that stuff has to be drawn out. Storyboard artists get booked on all those kinds of jobs. I would say that, you would have to really, depending on what kind of area of storyboarding you wanted to go in, I would say, number one, your draftsmanship and your illustrative talent has to be up to snuff. And then understanding basic camera lensing and things like that. And, you just basically have to start there. And then you have to, if you want to go down the film road, obviously you have to watch a lot of movies. You have to understand how a scene is cut together. If you want to go into more of the advertising thing, you're going to get more into like color type storyboards. So it all depends on where you want to go and what you want to do. But I would say for me, if you wanted to get into like doing storyboarding films, it's a bit of a complicated process because it's all union, and it's really, really difficult to get into the union. So you can get on a union film or a non-union film, and you can be grandfathered in that way when it turns union. That's one of the ways you can do it. So yeah, I would say you would have to make a decision where you want to land in the storyboarding world, because like I was saying, it crosses so many different areas. And then you have to tailor make a game plan for which area you want to land in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. All right.
So, I mean, when I started, like I said, they were booking me on everything. So I kind of had like a really wide-ranging background, because I did all that stuff, print ad, advertising for a lot of years, which I hated. Commercial storyboards, which are close to film boards, but you don't have the creative freedom that you do in film, because it's a 15, 30-second spot, and all the shots are controlled really tightly by the client and the agency and then the production company. But at the same time, there's no thinking involved. They tell you what to draw, and you sit there and you be a good little illustrator, and you draw out the shots that they want you to draw. So there's not a lot of thinking involved. So there's not a lot of responsibility involved. So as long as it looks the way they like it to look, it's all good. But yeah, if you're going to go into the film world, it's a whole different animal altogether.
Okay, that's really good feedback. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Oh, well, thanks for the interview. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right, we'll be right back, folks.
Welcome back to the College Cinephile. I am M. Rubio, and in today's review, we'll be discussing the second most anticipated project that has Finn Wolfhard in it. It's the It remake, based on the 1990 TV movie, which was already based on the 1986 novel that was only recently read by angsty teenagers and perverts who read the Wikipedia summary. It stars Jaden Lieberher and Bill Skarsgård. It's the second film of Andres Muschietti, and it's pretty good. I am with Gabby Sam to discuss our thoughts further. But first, a special thank you to the Alamo Drafthouse in Lubbock for allowing us to see the film in advance. If you want to check them out, they'll be having a screening of Fight Club on September 19th. But with that said, Gabby, tell us about it.
Well, I'm going to start off with my extremely low expectations of it. And they were only low because I've never seen the original, nor have I ever read the book. And growing up, people always talked about it, and I personally just never was interested in clowns, never been scared of clowns, just weren't my thing, went to the circus a couple times, still weren't my thing. So they were extremely low because I wasn't expecting a clown to scare me that much. But there were a couple jump scares that really got me, jumping in my seat.
For me, I was just kind of indifferent towards the film, because there was the film the Poltergeist remake, which came out a few years earlier, and I was kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Just the cash in, whatever.
I didn't see that one.
And then
Not a big
for the
fan.
I kind of thought the same thing. I was like, okay, it's gonna be a thing. I'm just not gonna be indifferent towards it. I probably wouldn't even have saw it if I wasn't
Me either.
obligated to watch it for the college
Me either.
cinephile. And but I was pleasantly surprised.
I was
I went
too.
in and I think that's why it's gotten so much praise early on, because
people don't have much expectation for
there's
a
that
clown.
Rotten Tomato score of 90. It was 97 at
Wow.
one point, and I was just and I think a lot of it was because the expectations were either so low or
Yeah.
just kind of
And
indifferent towards it.
It went right out the water with my expectations because, like you said, with clowns, you can't really get that scared. But I think they did a good tie of laughter, funny scenes, as well as the scary scenes, and they both combined really well for a good balance, for it not to be too scary, but it was really funny as well.
I mean, I guess it's just to keep the to kind of release the tension whenever it needs to, and I think
Yeah.
it does okay. For me, there are some parts, and this is kind of nitpicky territory, where it would try too hard on certain cases.
Yeah, I
and
agree with
that
that.
applies to both the comedy and the horror elements.
For me,
as
it's
well.
more so on the comedy because the jokes were so back to back that you don't have enough time to process
In fairness,
the first
it
one.
works. It works for that character, which is most of the comedy comes from Finn Wolfhard's
Yes,
character.
my favorite character.
And I think it works well in that sense because every guy has that friend or was that friend.
Yeah.
And and it does have that Goonies feel of you can relate to one of these characters.
Yeah.
And you can and you know these characters.
Yeah, and
from
sadly,
your
I
childhood.
related the most with the germaphobe kid.
I related.
That's who I related to the most.
I was Finn Wolfhard.
You were?
Okay. So I completely understand, and that's why even though it would try too hard in some cases, it worked for that character.
And yes, it really did.
So in that case, I'm more forgiving in that aspect. But for the horror aspect, I felt like it tried really hard, and for me, it came down to the fact that the sound design was very repetitive, and that was something I really noticed.
That's the thing, because whenever I'm getting scared, I just, cover my ears because the sound is what makes it scary for me. And then the jump scares,
Well,
you can't
the
really...
sound design is what gets me as well, but the sound design in this one wasn't very. It was very pedestrian. It was
You
very.
think so?
It was very serviceable. I could hear the violin strum.
Yeah.
I think they used the same MP3 file of the violin strum for every
single jump
horror
scare or just scare in
And
general.
I was just getting really annoyed by it.
Oh.
And that's why some of the more effective horror scenes are the ones that either lack that
or it was just out of nowhere and
it's-
had no sound.
or it's just very subdued.
Yeah.
I won't spoil which specific scenes, but you'll know
When you
viewers at
see it,
home,
you'll see it,
You'll
yeah.
know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And yeah, I think there are a lot of effective moments kind of sprinkled throughout, and that's really what kind of makes it not a somewhat of a above average movie.
Yeah. I also really liked the bond that the characters had. I know that it's always really good to see younger kids all together and being for each other so young, and I think they did a really good job at portraying that in the movie. So they were all sticking together, although, there's that scene, where they kind of have their differences, but they all end up back together and they,
Yeah.
it's really good to see
Yeah,
that.
it's done really well.
And it really added to
I
the
haven't
story.
seen the original TV movie in a long time.
Yeah.
It was something that always came on, and it was one of those movies I never finished in one all together. It was
Yeah.
I
Just
saw
bits
one.
and pieces
I
and
saw
you
the
kinda
first act
remember.
on Saturday, and I saw the
Yeah.
second act on another week. So it was one of those movies for me, and I can't really compare it to the original in that sense of
Yeah,
whether the
me
chemistry was
either,
as
yeah.
good, but it was solid. I think that's really what the best way to describe that movie was solid. All the negatives I have for it are
Very minor.
are negatives. They don't really they don't just ruin the movie for you.
Yeah,
For me,
not at all.
the two things that really stood out for me were Bill Skarsgård performance, which was, while good,
It was kinda
the writing didn't necessarily like tailor to give him enough time to, they didn't give him enough screen time to kind of like give dialogue in any sense.
Yeah, because the only scenes there really were was at the beginning.
Yeah, because
in the sewer.
Yes, and the end.
Yeah.
And I wish they gave him more screen time, because like some of the more scarier elements in that movie was whenever Pennywise was interacting with
you're right.
the. That's why the opening was so kind of frightening with the way he delivered his lines, his facial expressions,
And the popcorn.
and just and like the lines he said. It's really it's very lighthearted, but like because of the context of the genre, you kind of feel uneasy by it. And that's why I feel that
I
first scene
definitely
really works.
felt uneasy, and in some cases, I did want to laugh at some of the things that he did, and like the popcorn, for example. I don't know why. Maybe because it was the trailer. Like, you know how the little boy bumped his head, and then seeing that part, and then have it followed by Pennywise's performance. It just kind of, I was still laughing at it, but at the same time I was scared, and that was me throughout the whole movie as well. But I don't know. Sometimes I was laughing too.
And so it was a solid performance. I just wish they gave him more to do, other than him like running.
That would have been nice to see.
Other than him like running at the camera weirdly, which was like creepy at first, but then
and then after a
really
while it was
annoying.
repetitive, and it's just like, okay, I'm expecting to do this again.
That's where I feel like it was trying too hard with the scares and with the humor. It was just kind of like just getting in your face about it.
Yeah.
The other thing and this is kind of another nitpick, was like, especially early on, the dialogue is very expository. It's just like, oh, like you've been working at the thing for so many years, blah blah blah, and it's just like it's so on its sleeve, and you can like tell that dialogue was only there to establish the characters. So and that was just annoying for me.
Well, I know that me with movies, like thinking about it at that aspect, I never really think much into it. I just watch it, and that's something you might have thought about later, but that's something that I don't even think about later. So that's good that you bring that up, because I wouldn't have even thought about that.
Yeah, it's just something that just comes to mind. Like I've seen enough of these movies where I'm like, oh
yeah, and I don't really look
can
into
just
scary
catch it
movies
now.
that much. I'm too scared to pay attention to that much detail.
But yeah, it's solid. I think I keep going back to that word, but this is like a perfect example of just a solid movie to watch.
Yeah,
like
and I would definitely rewatch it.
I don't know if I would rewatch it, but like I guess it depends on how you feel about it when you watch it. But like, like it has a few effective moments sprinkled in, and it's not really bad, and it doesn't have a point where it dips in quality.
No, not at all.
It's just kind of like
It just kind of stays on that
pretty
high
average
of really good.
with some like spikes in quality.
Yeah.
And I feel that's a great way to describe it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would highly recommend it, and
Go check it out.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the College Cinephile. I'm Sydney Hatfield, and with me is Gabrielle Sam. Today we will be discussing the W and the L's of the summer.
First off, we'll start off with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which made about $500 million and received a positive critical reception. And I haven't seen that one, and I plan to still, so I know it's going to be good because the first one was amazing. So what about you? What did you think?
I really liked it. I saw it twice, once with my friends, and then I took my dad for his birthday. And I liked it a lot. You know, it's not as good as the first one, but like it was a really good follow-up, and I really liked it a lot.
And I'm glad that you said that it's a really good follow-up, because I'm hoping for the best still.
Oh, yeah. Next is, and it gets a W from us.
Oh, yeah, W.
Next is Alien Covenant, which made $74 million and received mixed critical reviews. We are going to go ahead and give that one an L.
An L.
Yeah.
I had never planned on seeing this movie to begin with, so it just got an L for me. The trailer didn't seem that interesting. So.
No.
Now on to Everything, Everything. It made $34 million on a $10 million budget and got generally poor reviews. But personally, I really liked it. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
My friends hated it. I loved it.
Yeah. The trailers, like, when I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, this looks like a young adult, like, novel. And it is.
It was, a cliche movie, but I love cliches, so it was good.
Yeah. But,
and it gets an L, but a W for me. So that's all that matters.
Along with Everything, Everything is Baywatch, which made $58 million and received poor reviews. I saw it, and I wasn't happy with it. A lot of comedies like this let me down, and when I saw
a lot
it,
of comedies nowadays,
yeah,
not funny.
The plot was too complicated and it was needless. And
Yeah,
just,
and
no.
comedies are supposed to be simple and easygoing.
Exactly,
With comedy,
exactly,
It doesn't
yeah.
sound like that happened. And I didn't see it, but I was going to, just not anymore.
Yeah, but it gets an L from
An
us
L.
and from the people.
Yeah.
Um,
And of course, there's Wonder Woman. It made $409 million and got raving reviews, but not for me. I didn't care for it that much. It was okay. I saw it so long ago that I don't really remember much of it, which goes to show I didn't like it.
yeah. I loved it. I saw it twice.
Yep,
once
most
again.
people love it, so.
Yeah, I saw it twice. Once again, I went with my friends, and then I took my mom and my dad for my mom's birthday and for Father's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, who does not like superheroes, actually really liked this one.
that's good.
And so that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it obviously gets a W.
A W, but kind of an L for me. But it was still decent. I'm not going to say it was a terrible movie.
Yeah. Next is The Mummy, which grossed $80 million domestically and received poor reviews. This reboot gets an L.
An L. I
Yeah.
wasn't planning on seeing this one either. The trailer didn't catch my attention. I just had no interest in that movie at
Yeah.
all. So on to Cars 3. It made $151 million and got generally positive reviews. So honestly, I think Cars 3 gets a W.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one either, but Cars 3 is such an amazing
Yeah.
franchise, and I know a lot of people love it.
Yeah.
Again, I
And
didn't plan on
Pixar's-
seeing this one,
yeah.
but
And I have faith in Pixar's. I didn't see it either. One day I will, but just not right now. But yeah, definitely a
a
W.
W.
Next is Transformers, which made $130 million and got very poor reviews. It gets an L.
It gets an L.
And the
Transformers just nowadays.
Yeah, the whole franchise
get
gets
Ls.
an L. The
L
whole
after
franchise.
L.
Yeah.
And the surprising hit of the summer is Baby Driver, which made $106 million and got raving reviews. It definitely gets a W, and I haven't even seen it yet. Which is a yet.
yes.
I plan on seeing it.
Yes, for sure. Especially because it's Edgar Wright behind the helm. And
Yeah, and apparently makes really good movies.
yes, yes. Next is Spider-Man: Homecoming, which made $325 million and got good reviews.
It got a good review from me. I
Yeah.
really liked it, especially how they portrayed him as a boy rather than a man. And he was able to make those mistakes. And in the other ones, he didn't really seem to make as much mistakes as the other one, the
Yeah.
new one, I should say.
Yeah.
And I really liked it.
Yeah, I really like how Spider-Man for me is my favorite superhero, along with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how they showed him doing the small things, like helping someone cross the street or
Yeah.
getting a cat from small things like
And
that.
then he felt that he was ready to take on bigger tasks, which
Yeah.
at the time it didn't seem like he was,
No, yeah.
No.
Like just a child. It's
Yeah.
okay. But it definitely it gets a W.
It gets a W, for sure.
Yes.
And the next is Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, which only made $40 million from a $150 million budget and got really poor reviews. And that gets an L because I didn't even want to see that.
No.
I think it's based off like
A comic series.
there we go, yeah. And
Yeah.
I just
No.
Not for me.
I have no interest. No.
none. And apparently they used Rihanna in it for only 3 seconds, and she was over all of the advertising and
Yeah.
marketing. So
Yeah.
no, not for me.
Yeah. Next is the Emoji Movie, which made $81 million and got poor reviews. It gets an L,
An L.
for sure. There was no need for that movie, and it was made.
It was no. Honestly though, the commercials were pretty funny with a little poop emoji. Do you remember that commercial?
Yeah.
It was pretty funny to me, but it wasn't funny enough to make me watch it.
No,
So
no.
finally, is The Dark Tower, which made $48 million and got poor reviews. And honestly, I don't want to say this, but it gets an L
Yeah.
for me.
Like,
it
I
gets
know
an
a
L.
lot of people were disappointed in that.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed that it wasn't good because, I don't know, there was just something about seeing, emo Matthew McConaughey, and I
Yeah.
was just all for that.
It just had a lot of good aspects, it seemed, but it just didn't
Right,
do good.
yeah.
I still haven't seen it, but I honestly plan to. Me and my dad had been planning it for a while, and summer gets ahead of us and everything,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we weren't able to go see it.
But yeah, so that's it from us. Thank you for watching The College Cinephile. Like and subscribe down below, and we'll see you next week.
record.
It's just you saying stuff, we're trying to have to look pretty.
Basically. Okay. So I want to thank all of our viewers for watching us and staying up to date with us on Twitter or Facebook. And it's been kind of a weird, rough first season for us. So this is kind of I just kind of want to give credit where credit's due and introduce everyone. So on my left over here, we have one of my cameramen, the amazing Brandon White. On my other left, closest, right here, M. Ruby, as you know. He'll also be like primarily our blooper reel, so that'll be next. Stay tuned for that. And on my far right, I have Cindy Hatfield as well, another one of my hosts and one of my audio board workers. On right next to her is Gabby Sam, another one of my audio workers, as well as another host for us. And lastly, right here on my right is Mian Gonzalez, and she does our teleprompter work as well as the audio board as well, because we're students, we have crazy schedules, and people come and go. Unfortunately, we are missing a few people, as you may have noticed. Raven is not here presently, but I want to give a mad shout out to her for always, being one of my editors and always, for the most part.
Can you put a picture up, Raven?
Yes. Put a picture of yourself on for us, Ray. So I want to thank her for doing an amazing job, for being a host as well, being my editor, always being available when I need her. Madison Stubbs, another one of my camera women, cannot be here as well, but I want to give her a crazy thanks as well. I mean, we started recording, sorry to ruin the magic for you guys, but we start recording at 8 in the morning when this is done, so it's pretty time commitment. The fact that we have most people here, and this is, spoiler alert, this is right before finals for us, so it's kind of a crazy time. So I understand, not everyone can be here, sadly, but like I said, I want to give a mad shout out to Madison and Michael Westrope. I want to thank him as well for being my third cameraman, and also whenever I'm on camera, he's normally the one I have on the visual board, to cover my place for that.
You got Colton May.
I was getting to Colton. Jesus.
Get to Colton May.
I want to thank Colton May, Marcos's wizard / love interest for eternity, forever, BFFs.
He's really great.
Yeah, Colton, you're a great guy. If you watch this, I'm sorry, but I love poking fun at Marcos. But like I said, that's gonna wrap up for season.
What about Dr. Peasley?
Oh God, thank you. This is why I keep Marcus around. Despite cussing, we having to bleep his audio sometimes. This is why I keep Marcus around. I want to give a crazy shout out to Dr. Robert Peasley, who created the College Cinephile all the way back in fall 2016. Jesus. As you already know from the first episode, couple episodes we have on, that was just pure audio. We've upgraded, as you can kind of see. Waka waka, cool. So this is all his idea, and when we moved here, we wanted to keep his vision of what the show was about, keep its integrity, and really maintain what all this is about. Michael just walked in, so this is gonna be weird, okay?
We were just talking about you.
Hi, Michael. All right, little tardy to the party. Where am I at?
We don't even need to call this recap.
All right.
Let's call this the blooper reel.
Okay. So here is Michael. He did show up. I already did his intro, but he's here now. He has become death. So,
Raven,
like I said,
put like a sad face.
Can you do a slow motion of our reaction to Michael walking in?
Alright, this is it. Starting to the party. Where am I at? We don't even need to call this Alright, call this the blooper reel. Okay.
Alright, and again, Michael, one of my cameramen, also one of my editors with Raven as well. Unless anyone else randomly walks in the door, that's going to do it for us on season 1. Anyone else have some thoughts?
Well, we don't
feelings?
have our mics on, though. We have to, borrow that one.
No, you don't. I'm the only one allowed to talk. All right, well, that's going to do it for us on season 1. Thank you, guys. Cool.